Thanks for tuning in once again to more NASCAR talk on Prime Sports NASCAR. The round of 8 will take place starting on Sunday for the next 3 weeks, and then it's off to Phoenix for the final 4. As Eric Smith has not only decided to join us again this week, but he is looking like he's Phoenix bound. Which is going to be pretty cool. So we'll have some coverage live at Championship Weekend with Eric Smith and RaceReviewOnline.net live on site. That's awesome.
Yeah, glad to be able to, you know what? Maybe my price for booking my flights, like I told Greg off air, cost me $11 round trip. Maybe that's a good omen for Denny Hamlin because he was my pick a long time ago, and it was $11.
He can use all the luck he can get.
And it was the 9/11 commission fee. Which 9/11, but yeah, 9 last year, 11. It all adds up. So maybe Denny Hamlin's going to win. And the way he's looked so far in these playoffs, I tend to agree right now with the trends of my personal travel choices. But with my personal travel, I guess expenses, I should say, not choices. But yeah, so far it's looking good. I'll find out here probably next week. But flights are booked, so probably no turning back now. And then last week was at the Speedway, and I hope to maybe join during the test, but we got a rain, and then we went again, and then I thought, maybe technically it's supposed to go till 6. Maybe I can hop on and pit road, and then I look at the weather and like it's going to rain again, and I don't think it'd be a very good podcast to be sitting on pit road in the middle of a extreme rainstorm.
That's you would have went far and above.
Probably be good for it. Yeah. So I'll be back next week.
Yeah, I think so. And now look, it was a wild Sunday, and we were talking. We were texting each other towards the end of the race because it was a real fun race, especially in just about the first couple of laps. Larson led because he led the last 8 laps. It just never got any closer, and unfortunately, we didn't see William Byron get up there and pass Reddick, and then he just couldn't control his car, and then it was all over from there. So it didn't go as well as we would have liked to have finished over those last 8 laps. But in general, I just think, guys, this is the best road course, especially considering that it means so much compared to the other road course races, CJ. I just think this is, and again, it's not going to be perfect. Sometimes there's going to be a blowout kind of win. I get that. But because as long as there's, restarts and not caution-free type of situation, which I don't think is possible very often at this track, you're going to get those, I think those situations where you could have action like right away, everybody, those first 4 or 5 or 6 cars trying to make sure that they can pass early before it widens out. It's just a lot more fun, and I just think there's more opportunity for excitement at this track.
I agree. This road course is perfect for this series. I'm not sure if IndyCar or any other series went there that we'd get the same kind of excitement and good racing that we see, but it is custom built for NASCAR. The way that the course, well, number one, first of all, you hit the nail on the head that it means so much. It's a knockout race, so everybody's going for it. So that ups the emotion, that ups the aggression for a lot of guys. But then also, when you look at the way that the course is built within that infield, it's not as stretched out as Daytona. It's nowhere near as long straights as a place like Road America or something like that. And then when you compare it to a place like Mid-Ohio or even Sonoma, you've got much heavier braking points with wider areas to make passes. So while there are heavy braking points, 1 or 2 at Mid-Ohio and at Sonoma, which would be the courses I would tend to compare this one with, there are more opportunities to actually get passes done going into the chicanes. There's one on the front, there's one on the back. Coming into the horseshoe before you get back up onto the banking is another one, and also going into turn 1. So there's like 5 or 6 places where drivers can get aggressive and really try to bump one another. And given the fact that the straightaways aren't that long, they don't get as stretched out. So they're always really bunched together. And then when you throw on top of that, the fact that you're always going to get a caution here, because at a place like Road America, you can have a car go off and then you can get it off or back on track, and you don't have to go full course caution. You can leave it green. This course, you almost, no matter what happens, there's going to be traffic around, and you have to throw the yellow, which bunches them up for restart. So I think this course in particular should be a case study for all future road courses for NASCAR.
And we nearly, Eric, it looked like we were going to get the dream scenario late in the race, just when Chase Elliott was upon Kevin Harvick. And I didn't get any post-race comments from Kevin myself. I don't know what he said, but I don't know. I don't know whether or not, did he wreck because he wasn't paying attention? Was his eyes fixated on Chase Elliott behind him? And just at that time, split second, he jammed the brakes at the wrong time. I don't know. But the fact is, it seems like a coincidence that he wrecked just before Chase Elliott was going to probably wreck him.
He didn't speak on it. And the only thing I saw was he only did radio and TV, and I guess he walked away. And the replays I saw of those interviews, he didn't really speak of the incident. It was more about the Elliott feud. And he had that wry smile that, you remember Bristol? I mean, that was his comment he made. And so that kind of insinuated that, yes, he wrecked Elliott on purpose. He didn't speak of his incident, but I'd have to think Kevin Harvick's a champion. He's a good racer. I don't think he just makes a mistake, like just drives off into turn one. I do think that maybe he was told Elliott was coming. It's like he pushed it too hard into the turn, I think. I think he was trying to get a little bit of distance because Truex was on the outside. I think he knew he had a buffer out there. And it's almost like he pushed too hard in the turn, knowing that I guarantee he was told the 9 is coming. He wasn't there yet. I don't think Chase was close enough to make a move in that turn one, nor do I think I don't think he would have made a move at that point. I think he just would have made life miserable for Harvick because he had to have been told at that point in the race, why wreck him? I know you wanted payback, but you were back in. There was no sense to risk yourself getting taken out. And I think Harvick, though, didn't know the situation other than you look in the rear view and you see the Napa 9 coming in your mirror, and you're told probably he's coming. And I think he just overdrove the corner, and which goes to CJ's point about that road course. And it's like the driver said, it's more like a street course in the inside because there's walls on both sides. It's not your typical road course where you get off course and you can live the fight another day. You just come back on. No, there's a wall waiting for you. So I feel like he just made a mistake. He pushed too hard and found that wall, and game over. Now the question is it game over? That I don't know.
Chase didn't get his revenge.
No, and I would think if Chase did anything over these next 3 weeks, he's probably one of the dumbest people I know. If you are fighting for
what if he wins?
I still wouldn't, only because of the factor you've got Phoenix. You got to think the bigger picture. Right now, I feel like they're even in a sense. I don't feel like either thinks they're even. I feel like Harvick probably still thinks, hey, I'm not in the championship fight, and he ruined my chance, which I don't think he really did, because even if Harvick won Bristol, he still wouldn't advance on because you only get 5 playoff points, and that still wouldn't have been enough to get by. But I don't trust that Harvick thinks that, like, I want to ruin his championships and for Elliott championship hopes. And for Elliott, I don't think he got anything to gain by poking the bear, because now next year's a different story. But for this year, I think it's got to be done. I think Rick Hendrick kind of made that message clear in the post conference. It needs to be done, that he helps NASCAR. If it isn't, steps in, because the thing with Harvick, and I wrote this earlier in the week, is he's a father. He's got a 9-year-old son that looks up to him. He's a race car. He's a go-kart driver, I think, himself.
Didn't he compare his son to Chase?
He did. And what kind of message do you think that sends to your 9-year-old son who looks up to a race car driver, that it's okay to use your car as a weapon? I would have rather seen Kevin Harvick get out and, again, I had an issue with it. Bristol, he gets out with his helmet on. What are you going to do with your helmet on? You're not going to do anything. You're a fraud in that situation. And then the post-race stuff in the garage, he's got his PR, got his helmet holder, just kind of carrier laughing. Like, Chase should have decked him, not Harvick. And then you get in the Roval and you punt Elliott out of the way for no reason. I mean, it's like, I get why you did it, but you ruin his chance. Chase shouldn't poke that bear. You could clearly see something's there. And what message are you sending your son? So I would think Harvick should really think about
We'll see.
maybe letting this go.
Yeah.
But for us, for the drama, go for it. Hey, by all means, Martinsville, you want to wreck Chase Elliott? Denny Hamlin did a few years ago. It just seems that I think I'm seeing a new Chase Elliott who's defending himself a little more. That was our gripe a few years ago, is like he just gets run over, restarts aren't his thing. And I feel like he's getting a little more skirmishes with people. He's holding his ground, which I like. But I'm sure we'll get to in a little bit. I also disagree with the way NASCAR handled the Chase Elliott situation during the race, because I felt like he probably should have been black flagged if you just go by the rules, which is two separate circumstances. It's like, well, wait a minute here. You kind of have two different rules for playoff drivers and non-playoff drivers, but I thought this was a race, just another race of the season. So it's a slippery slope. I get why NASCAR swallowed the whistle too, but I also think they probably should have thrown something which completely changed that whole race, because if you throw a black flag for Elliott, you probably don't get the caution. Byron probably wins. Kevin Harvick's in. Now both aren't even. So I think there's a slippery slope. You can go down a weird wormhole with this. But, yeah, and I do think Harvick made a mistake, an uncharacteristic mistake in turn one.
Well, we all had Kyle Larson. So, but for the second time this season, and hopefully I'll have it for longer than a week, I'm in first place on our weekly point stand.
You got me.
Last time I had it, it lasted a week. So especially now that we're investing $400 a week, so that could change very quickly.
Well, you're welcome. I didn't throw it all on Larson because he wouldn't have won, and then he wouldn't have,
That's
because
true.
I almost did that last week
see?
again. Every time I think about it, he loses.
Well,
and when I don't do it, he wins. So I thought about it, and I even told my wife before that race that she goes, "Who do you think's going to win?" I said Kyle Larson, and then when he was 18, she's like, "Ha, you were way off." And then 7 to go, I go, "Ha, I'm right on."
It is amazing with the problems that they had that they won that race. It really was.
It is. It shows why I think they should be a championship favorite right now. I know it's weird how it ebbs and flows, how beginning of the season we're saying Hamlin, second half of the regular season we're saying Larson, playoff start we're back on the Hamlin train, and now here Larson. It's like they're trading jabs every week. It's like Hamlin's going to win the opening race, the round of the race. Larson's going to win the closing round race. And it's a fun battle to watch. And there it was we were texting on Sunday. They're 1-2 again. After all that chaos, everything that happens, you look up and there they are again.
Yep.
But for that resolve to come back and change the battery, the alternator belt, I mean, just you had to be precise with changing the alternator belt to do what they did, not lose a lap, come from 26 to 6 before all that chaos happened. I mean, that's why it's a team sport. That's a championship team. That right there. Yeah, to come up with the plan that I was very impressed that happened. And to fear the point again, like CJ said earlier, that race, if that was on the oval like it used to be, I think that race is a dud. I think the Roval has, and the playoffs too, have impacted this, because if this was just the 31st race of the season and just paying a season on points and it was on the oval, I think that race gets lost in the shuffle.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that it's a playoff race because what would Larson gain in the past if he had that big of a lead? They would have taken their time, changed the alternator belt the right way, maybe lost a couple laps, rode around, finished 27th, 28th, and moved on the next race, because there's no playoffs. What's it matter? You just score the points. Well, now he had to. He could have been on the outside looking in.
Absolutely.
So I feel like the playoff format is worked, and this race was the full display on why it's working.
I'm sure Ryan Blaney wishes he had that team. But that's why to me, that's the big difference when you're thinking about a champion. See, I don't think that Vegas puts that into when they're going over odds, but we do. And that it's not that Kyle Larson is that much better, if that at all, than Ryan Blaney of a driver. It's just that Kyle Larson has just got a much better team, much better.
Yep.
And it's going to be hard for Ryan now. It'll be if Blaney can get into a Final Four scenario with Larson, anything can happen in one race. That is true. No matter how good your team is or how questionable your team is, anybody can pull off like the best race of the year for your team, and everybody does the right pit stops, and it can happen, but it's just still a major advantage for Kyle Larson and a liability for Ryan Blaney and others like him. And that's why Kyle is still the favorite once again at 2-1 to win the championship. Taking a look at our futures overall, we haven't done that in a while. And right now I've invested 15,000. So I have 4 drivers that are really in contention that I need to win. Logano, Kyle, Hamlin, and Blaney. Blaney would be the big payoff for me. CJ, for you've invested 16,100, and you have 2 drivers that you need, and the perfect 2: Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin. And Larson right now would clear you $3,000, so you're in good shape there. Eric, you've invested near almost 28,000, and it sort of piggybacks the real life paychecks that you get compared to me and CJ. But Logano is your big one, 10,000. Otherwise, Truex, Blaney, and Hamlin. Those are the ones that are still in contention for you to make some money. You and I have money invested in Larson, but we're just not going to be able to catch up. And maybe, the only good thing is that we've invested enough on a weekly basis in our picks that who knows? I mean, I would like to hope that we could actually start making money on our weekly picks, because we've been, in the minus, which is NASCAR for you. We've been minus most of the season, but if we can get lucky over the next few races, maybe we could start pulling our weight on our weekly picks to pick up the pace there. So let me ask you then, Eric, looking at your scenario there with Logano as your big breadwinner at this point, Truex and Blaney and Hamlin, who are you feeling do you feel real good about Logano, where you'd make $10,000 on him? Or who do you feel the best on out of those 4? If you had to just pick one driver out of the 4, Hamlin, Blaney, Truex, and Logano, that you would just back, who would it be?
Hamlin for right now.
So even though you're a few thousand behind,
yep,
you're like, I'm gonna risk. I would risk more on Hamlin to maybe break even than thinking that the other guys could actually make me money.
Yeah, just because I was to that almost there this week, and I wish I would have remembered Larson. I couldn't catch up on. I wouldn't have thrown money his way. It's like, do I keep going with Larson, just go all in and catch that gap, or am I too far behind? Or it's like, I can't put any more on your way and just go all in elsewhere.
Unless he crashes on Sunday and his odds go to 4-1 or something,
I keep waiting, but they keep not going anywhere. So it's like at this point, the round of 8, I kept saying I'm gonna own it in down and kind of like a funnel, and I kept Logano. And I feel like if Logano can make it there, yeah, he's gonna be a threat. My worry with him and Keselowski, not so much Blaney, but right now the first 2 races are 550 tracks, and they're not good on them this year. That's their deficit. And Blaney, the only reason I say not him is Ford's won 2 550 tracks all season, and he's the guy that won it for him, and he's not been as bad. Logano and Keselowski have. But 750 tracks, now they're pretty good. And Phoenix, I went and looked, and I've got this story coming out. Actually, I have it on here on my computer here because it's going to come out Friday. But at Phoenix earlier this year, the Penske swept both stages, led 63% of the laps, and they finished 2-4-10. And the only reason was that late caution. Truex stayed out. Truex got the win on the last 25 laps, but Logano had that thing won. And we saw Logano and Keselowski, they got experience from that same situation on the same race last year. So if they can get to Phoenix, I'd feel a lot better about Logano. But I feel like overall right now, I feel like out of the drivers that I have, Hamlin's probably the easiest one since I'm close enough for him. Because I feel the best about him winning in Phoenix, because I feel like, obviously, I feel like he's going to get there. I don't trust Logano to get there yet.
CJ, between Hamlin and Larson, you definitely would go with Larson, because you're almost 4,000 3,500 more on Larson than Hamlin right now.
Yeah, I'm getting it down to 2. Obviously, now coming into the final 4, I've been Larson. He was my preseason pick. He's been my mid-season pick, and he's been my pre-playoff pick. He still is now. No reason to change course. He hasn't changed anything that I've seen throughout the season. He's been extremely fast. It is interesting what Eric said about the last Phoenix race, though. So it'll be interesting who actually makes up that final 4. But I think right now, given three races out from Phoenix, you've got to look at the 2 guys who have been trading jabs, as he said, week to week, and that's Hamlin and Larson. And I at this point, I like Larson. He's been able to find victory lane much more frequently. Denny Hamlin has a history of choking in the final race.
He does.
Larson's never been there. So, it's a tough call, but I'm going to put my chips on Larson at this time. And I think the most revealing fact for me was that Eric forgot to do the math before he submitted his picks this week.
I was watching Monday Night Football with my 2 kids on either side of me, watching the Colts start to collapse, and I'm like, I'm just going to get this out of the way real quick while they're eating popcorn and not bugging me. And I did the math. I just kept it status quo as I do every week. If you notice, it's the same guys every. I'm like, I'm going to go status quo again. Let me see one more week of this, and not realizing that. Oh, wow. Larson probably isn't gonna. I'm probably not gonna close that gap with because my mind all along knew that the gap was kind of wide. Was like, one of these weeks I'm just gonna go all in on Larson the rest of the way, and at least I know if he wins the championship, I'm $2,000 down, not $15,000. So it's like I'm trying to close that gap, but Hamlin, and then you got Kyle and Truex and Logano, knowing that they can do it. I just couldn't write them off yet.
Yeah.
And I never did it in enough time. So it's like, I just got to cut the ties with Larson, even though I do feel like he's obviously going to get the championship for it. It's just, I'm not going to close that gap much more with going. So I'm going to have to eventually just shut the door and hope for the best at that point.
And again, all of this, you can find out all of this information on racereviewonline.net. For me, like I said, I got 4 drivers in there. The obvious one, though, look, it's taken me a while with Hamlin, because I've used Hamlin 4 straight weeks, and I've used him as the only driver in my futures 2 straight weeks to purposely now just make $250 if Denny Hamlin wins as of today. So I finally now have him at the point where I can invest in, as long as I just bet him every week, I'm making money with Hamlin. Doesn't mean that I'm real confident that he's going to pull it off, because I'm just not. I mean, I think he can. Every choker has their day. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. So maybe it'll happen for him. But I do believe that I still feel good about Ryan Blaney. I just do. I mean, he is doing well. And I'll say a little bit, first of all, with this race, and then we'll get into it. But and that is that I really believe that if Ryan Blaney doesn't perform really well on Sunday, he's not going to win the championship, because this is a great chance for him this week. He either wins or he finishes a good top 5 where he leads a lot of laps. Maybe he has some bad pit luck, whatever. But the momentum continues, and he's comfortably there. Maybe he almost wins. But I think he could win this race. And if he does, and he's in the championship, then all of a sudden Ryan Blaney has a great chance to win it. So I still have a lot, but I think this race is going to define the rest of the season for Ryan Blaney. Before I move on to talk about the race, though, let's get your final 4, as we have 3 picks to go. So, Eric, who's in your final 4?
I've got this weekend, Kyle Busch winning, because I feel like it's kind of wide open, which we'll get into the Texas stuff in a second. So I got him in.
Okay.
I've got Kyle Larson winning Kansas. So there's your second driver.
Okay.
I've got Denny Hamlin winning Martinsville. There's my third driver. So you got Hamlin, Larson in there, Kyle Busch. And then a little bit of surprise here. I've actually got Truex Jr. making it in on points. Only because I just don't feel like Kozlowski and Logano they're too far behind. Not like they're too far behind per se, but they're below the cut line. These first 2 tracks are probably not good tracks for them to close that deficit. and Truex already is going to have him beat on points going to a place in Martinsville where he's won 2 of the last 3, and the one he didn't win, he led 196 laps. So I feel like he can outperform him there. And then you got Chase Elliott, who I just don't feel good about at all right now. And that means then you got Blaney, like you mentioned, and I don't have him winning this week. So and Truex is already ahead of him in points. So that's why I gave Truex the nod as the 4th driver to get to the championship for.
Okay. And who do you have winning it? All things
right
even?
Now, all things even, I'm going to go Hamlin.
Okay.
Just because he's been there before. He's at his best on 750
He's lost
tracks.
before.
He has lost before. He's been there. Let's rephrase that. He's lost every one he's been there before. But the trend of new champion winners, I just feel like we're going to get another new champion. I just feel like now's the time. I just trust him and out of the other guys on that 750 package, but also wouldn't count out Truex or Busch either. But I just feel like Hamlin's going to, for some reason, it just feels like his year. I don't know why. It just feels like his year. So I'll roll with it. I've been calling him. He's been my pick all along. So
look, he's 4-1. That's still not bad. If you like Denny Hamlin, you're only a month away now from the championship. It's a great opportunity to invest, even if you've not invested at all this year. And if you want to do it, now is the time to do it. Go ahead. If you like Hamlin, you put a couple $100 in Denny Hamlin, you can make almost $1,000 on him. So 250, that'll do it. I'm gonna go Larson Hamlin, of course, but I'm gonna go Blaney and Logano. I think Logano's the guy that kind of sneaks in quietly, like Truex. And I'm confident with Blaney, like I have been all year. And I'm gonna stay confident, just like you are at Hamlin with Blaney, that he'll find a way if he can get there to win it. So CJ, who would you Larson and Hamlin, right?
Larson and Hamlin are my 2 top
choices. Who are your 2 outside of those 2?
My other two.
Two.
I would put Kyle Busch in there. I think he'll figure out a way to get it done. And then it's kind of a toss-up, honestly, for me between Logano and Elliot. I think either one of them could sneak through with a win in these 3 races, and it wouldn't surprise me for it to be either one of them. Right now, I'm leaning a little bit more toward Elliot. I just think, as Eric said a couple times, the bear's been poked the opposite way. I think Kevin Harvick has woken Elliott up, and so I think he's got a little bit of something to prove, extra motivation to get it done back-to-back. So right now, just barely edging Elliott over Logano, but I think either 2 could get through quite easily.
As far as disappointment, how disappointing is this? Is the driver that should be the most disappointed Byron, Eric?
Yeah, I would, just because he had that thing won. He had the best car, I feel like, that race, and that caution doesn't come out. I feel like he was going to win. I feel like the field was spread out enough that we probably were going to go that duration without a caution. I just feel like you add the caution, it took his chance away. He had to pit. They all did. And it just came down to that pit stop. He didn't get out in front. And then Logano had the clean air.
Denny Hamlin hung on there for a while.
On old tires.
Yeah.
He was there. And again, if you don't have that other caution there, maybe Hamlin wins that race, because Larson wasn't fully catching him. I don't feel like until that caution came out, which helped him close the gap for Larson to finally pass him, he could have held him off. But, yeah, I would be mad if I was Byron. I think he was right there. I think he should have probably been there. But I also selfishly, in the media, like Elliot involved, because that's your most popular driver and a guy that has been kind of ruffling feathers everywhere. I think Elliot holds a more impact. Nothing against Byron, but I feel like he holds a more story-wide impact for this round than Byron probably would have. I think Elliot getting eliminated wouldn't have really – I don't think it would have helped anything for media coverage. I think it moves the needle when Elliot moves on.
Sure.
And plus he's never not been in the round of 8, so I think that helps. The key is too, stat is I got here. Gibbs has put a car in the Final Four all 7 years of this format. Penske has done it for the last 5 years and 5 of the 7 overall. So I don't see either of them. That was my only thing with why I struggled with Logano over Keselowski, or Logano over Keselowski. Truex, because of that fact with Penske being there, but it was hard. So that's why I get that nod. Just Logano's only led 84 laps in his last 18 races. He's got 6 top 5s in his last 23. I just struggle. He's got no top 5s all season on 550 tracks.
And I'm glad that you bring that up, because here's what I found out, though. And I didn't go back. I only went back to last year. Let's keep this in mind. The first race in the round of 8 last year was Kansas.
Yep.
Who won? Joey Logano. He had not won in 28 races. The second race in the round of 8 was Texas. Who won? Kyle
Busch.
He wasn't even in the playoffs at that time. He was eliminated in the round of 12. He hadn't won in 2020. So the point is that, and that's not a trend, it's just 1 year. But if it begins a trend, this thing's wide open.
Yep. I feel like it is more wide open, though. Because you can make a case. This is my struggle, too. You can make a case Denny Hamlin doesn't make it. He's only +7. On 550 tracks, he's only got 5 top 5s. Granted, he won at Vegas. But then you go to Texas, 4 of his last 6 finishes are 20th or worse.
Yeah,
he was 9th last year. Kansas, he was 15th last year and 12th in the spring. Martinsville, 24th and 11th last year. So if he just repeats that, he's not moving on. Not with those stats at +7. So then you got Kyle Busch. These are great tracks for him. But you look at what he's done in the playoffs, and it's like they just keep inserting foot in the mouth every time. It's speeding penalties, loose wheels, 2 lug nuts. He doesn't even have his crew chief this weekend. Darlington fiasco. It's just like, can you get it going? This is going to be the round, because this is as tight as I think if I remembered going into the round of 8 from 1 through 8. I just feel like you just can put an umbrella over him or a blanket over him, and you can't give up stage points. You can't have speeding penalties. You can't shoot yourself in the foot. Whoever makes the least amount of mistakes is going to move on, because I feel like they're all so even. You can literally make it. I mean, Kevin Harvick won 9 times last year and was eliminated this round. So
you don't know.
And that's why Chase Elliott was hard for me to. It's still hard for me to ride. I mean, this week is not his week, which I know we'll get to. But then you look at Kansas. He's got 5 top 6s in his last 6 there. You look at his fall races: 4th, 1st, 2nd, 6th. You look at Martinsville. He was runner-up in the spring. He won this race last year. 5th the spring before. 2nd the spring before. I mean, he's very good at Martinsville. So it's hard to write him off, but it's hard to like, well, he's not won other than road courses this year. Logano has only led 84 laps. Keselowski's only led 44 laps if you go back in the summer. He hasn't won in 22 races. Logano's only wins on dirt. Keselowski's only wins on a super speedway. So it's like you could get all wrapped up in it, but it's like it also – these are all champions we're talking about. So any of them could turn that – it's not like it's a drive that's not been here before. These guys have all been here. If you need to turn it on like that, they all could.
So does that make Blaney the only non-champion and Larson?
Let's see. Hamlin. Kyle's 1, Truex is 1. Keselowski's 1. Blaney. Yeah, there's 3. That's it. 3 of the 8.
Oh, Blaney, Larson, and who?
8 of 1.
Hamlin.
That's right. Hamlin.
How could you forget?
Yeah, right.
He throws it away.
And Kyle's the only multi-time champion that's even left in the whole series. He's the only one that's won more than one champion. So
anything can happen, and it starts on Sunday. So, and taking a look at your track trend notes. So Charlotte is the closest, obviously the oval, to Texas Motor Speedway, the 1.5-mile track. Atlanta is also similar. Charlotte would be the most similar. The other 1.5-mile tracks are Kansas, Vegas, and Homestead. Interesting, and I haven't seen I just looked at the supposed top 10 yesterday. I haven't looked at the actual top 10. But 17 of the last 19 winners and 19 of the last 22 have won from the top 10. So who's outside the top 10 that's in the playoffs starting this race?
They all start.
All 8.
Yeah.
Is that designed?
It is, and it's the points reset. So the bottom 4 drop back down to the points that they had before. So these guys, since they're still in it, give them the boost in the formulaic calculation.
Okay. All right. Okay.
They're starting 1 through 8, basically.
Okay. Got
Yep.
it. All right. So let's get started with the Autotrader EchoPark Automotive 500. We only have 2 drivers that we've all agreed upon. You know who those 2 are, CJ?
Kyle Larson.
Yep.
And
Should be easy.
Busch.
No.
Then I don't know.
Blaney.
Yes. All right.
So Larson's the favorite at 3-1, the overwhelming favorite. And yet, he only has 3 top 5s in 13 with 74 laps led. It all happened in this 2017 race. He's crashed in 3 of his last 5 races. Okay, but he hasn't raced at this track with his new team, his equipment, and all that stuff. And we've seen what he's done in those type of situations on the road courses. I don't know if we've seen that on other races. So that's the only difference, is that I'm not sure he's had like some bad history somewhere. I don't know if you remember anything, Eric, where Larson came into this year outside of a road course with bad history. But hey, he's got a new team, a new car, and he just surprised everybody and actually dominated and won. Have you checked? Have you figured that out? Checked that out at all?
I haven't. I didn't.
So nothing nothing comes to mind.
No, and you also got to think too. I think this, not a shot at Ganassi, but the Hendrick car he's in is just so much better.
Yeah,
it's hard to compare the past and things that have happened. Where I remember it was Kansas a couple years ago. He was way above the cut line and blew an engine early in the race. Those stage points was eliminated. Like weird stuff like that would happen to him. But again, it's a completely different car, different packages. And now Hendrick just clearly showed that once he got to a top team, what he can do. So that's why I didn't put a whole lot of stock in the past.
The only thing with that though is that he's 3-1. That's it. It's not that if all things are even. It's just that he doesn't have a lot of good history here, and yet he's got to do it, and it's just got to be about his new equipment and his new team. That doesn't work all the time. Sometimes, as we all know, drivers just aren't very good at certain tracks, no matter how much good equipment you put into it. So we won't know that until Sunday, until he goes out there and races. But he won the Coke 600, and he dominated the first Atlanta race, as we know. So he's got that familiar track kind of history already this year, and he won Las Vegas to boot. So, but again, he's 3-1. In saying that, we all picked him. So
yeah, and he won the All-Star.
He won the All-Star. Yeah, the All-Star race was
package. Yeah, at Texas though, and I also looked at this stat that we've had 10 races on 550 tracks this year, which is a large sample size. And I had it all up. It's in my article in the Round of 8 preview, the case for and against these drivers, my prediction. And Larson's led 46% of all laps on 550 tracks. He's led 1,351 laps. Actually, that's 67%. I'm sorry. That's 46% of his overall laps led this season are on these tracks. He's led 67% of laps on 550 tracks. He's got 10 stage wins. He's also been in the top 2 in 13 of the 21 stages. He's won 3 wins, 3 runner-ups, 7 top 5s, and a top 10 in all but 2. So I took all that together and again, I almost just threw it all on Larson this week. I was close just because of those stats. I feel like another good race for him, but I felt like that in Vegas. I started last round. And we saw what happened, and he didn't win. So
well, you're only 370 in the rear, and if you do that and it's a mistake, you go to 770 in the rear.
Exactly,
that's a big gamble.
That would be the nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
So I decided against it because there are other drivers that are good there, and really everybody else is at least double the odds.
Yeah.
So
and that's the thing is that I don't know. I mean, besides Larson. And again, I need to see. And here's the other thing, too, is that let's keep in mind over the last month, he's had a couple of incidents where things have happened and gone wrong. Is that pressure? Are we getting closer to the end of the season? And I know there shouldn't be pressure, but look, they've handled the pressure well when things went wrong on Sunday, so that's good. That's good to know. But I don't know. It's like maybe it's not the team, but maybe there's some chink in the armor, with everything that's, it could be the equipment, whatever the case, but they're not as perfect as they have seemed earlier. And let's also keep in mind that when he dominated the most this season, it was during that stretch when there was a bunch of road course races. Not that he didn't, again, great Coke 600, and that was during that stretch, but these last couple of months have not been his best couple of months. It was just before that when he was really on top of the world. There has been some issues. So, and we just talked about it. It could take just one bad race from any of the drivers on Sunday, and they're in the 8-hole, and all of a sudden they start to sweat it out over the next two weeks. So, but look, we all like Larson. It's just that 3-1 is still a low number to wager with. You and I, Eric, were the only ones that took Kyle. Why didn't you like Kyle here this week, CJ?
When I looked at the All-Star race, to be honest with you, there are 4 guys that led double-digit laps. 3 of them were Hendrick cars. The other one was Ryan Blaney. So I just feel like Hendrick and Chevrolet have the faster package. Like Eric said, with Larson getting out front for a significant portion of the laps this year on these types of tracks, I do think that the Chevrolets are the ones that can get it done. Aside from that, I did go with Hamlin because, he's not in the Hendrick camp, but I'm continuing on my every week, and I've narrowed it down to those 2 guys. So I'm going to go with Hamlin. I just think this week, not to say that Kyle Busch can't pull it off, but given what I've seen this season, I think the All-Star race is probably a better comparison to what we're going to see this week than probably what we saw in the past year or 2 at the track, which was when Kyle Busch was actually pretty good. So I just don't see him reversing unless they learn something in the All-Star race. I just don't see him in particular reversing where he was from the beginning of the season, which was a 9th place in the All-Star race. He only led 6 laps.
I just think, Eric, that this is also kind of it for Kyle because he has struggled. The whole team has struggled recently, that if he does not perform really well on Sunday, doesn't have to win necessarily, but just lead laps, don't make mistakes, top 5, runner-up, whatever, and everything's okay for now. If that doesn't happen, they finish 12th, they have a couple of mistakes, they're done. Because his numbers are so good at this track. It's clearly better than any driver here by a mile that's in contention. He has 14 top 5s and 4 wins in 30 races. That's almost half of his races in the top 5 with over 1,000 laps. And then throw on the fact that last year he was 4th and 1st. This year he was 3rd at Vegas. He was 5th and 2nd at Atlanta. He was 3rd at Charlotte, and he won Kansas. What else do you want other than they're not coming into this race doing all that well? But I'm willing, and I guess you are too, to just give him one more week, knowing how good the history here at this track is, as well as his history this season on this type of track.
Yeah, this is the time he needs the momentum back. This is the time to turn it on. Like you said earlier, that guys can just turn it this round. It seems
maybe
like
he can do it. Yeah,
ended. And this is the race because you feel like the door is open right now. Because yes, we said all the stats with Larson, but you look at points paying races with this package, he's not great there. Denny Hamlin's not great there. The Penske's have a deficit, which they've been saying all along. We can't fix it. There's nothing we can do with this package. So if you just start eliminating people, Truex Jr. has never won at Texas before. You start eliminating people that way, like, well, who's left? I mean, only 4 times in this playoff race has a non-playoff driver won it, and it was Busch last year. So it's like the time is now. Like, Kevin Harvick is probably the 2nd best driver there, but he's not having a good season at all. I almost wagered. I mean, you're getting
I know, it's
1.
just, come on.
And he won 3 of the last 4 fall races. Yeah. Those are the only 2 guys that win the last 4 years. But
his numbers are incredible here. Yeah,
they are. It's like the door is open for you, which is, do you want to go through it? And they just feel like they keep shutting their own door this playoff. So this is the time to get it right. I don't buy too much in the crew chief being gone, because they got war rooms back in Charlotte to where it doesn't matter your crew chief's not there. They're communicating with him.
He doesn't
anyways.
have
It doesn't
this
matter.
great relationship with this crew chief anyway, so I don't,
Yeah, it doesn't really. They could still make the changes and radio back to Charlotte and get message. There's nothing that these crew chief need to be there for, because they're not practicing or qualifying anyways. It has nothing to do with it. So I just felt like if there's any time Kyle's going to do it, this is the time, because in Kansas and Martinsville, you're opening it up back up to everybody else again. So can they rise to that occasion? And for 7-1, let's try it. Let's try it. 7-1 is.
And speaking of Harvick, none of us put money on Harvick at 12-1. 12 top 10s in his last 13, 9 of those top 5s, 3 of those runner-ups, 3 of those wins, with over 676 laps led.
And he's 12-1.
And he's 12-1. But he's done nothing all year, and he's coming off his elimination race. So it's just, how could he do that? How could he just win now? And it's not like, look, the last 2 races, 5th and 16th. So it's not that, that kind of momentum has kind of already stopped a little bit last year. And I could see that definitely being the case. We all do. Even though he's 12-1. I would not advise you not to put money on him if you want to put money on him, anybody out there. But, we just, how
many cars in the 2018 do you think if Stuart Haas made it to this round? Do you remember? All 4. We're at 0 a few years later.
Well, we talked about that in the very first show of the season, about how could they do this to him? I mean, he has nobody. It's him. He doesn't have any good teammates. No experienced teammates.
It's been a big story throughout the year, because they started off on the back foot. Nobody's been there to be able to help him figure out and get the team rallied around him to be able to improve upon the season. He's been able to, in my opinion, he's been driving above what the team has been giving him. So the times that he's bringing home top 5s, he is over his head. He is wringing absolutely everything that he can get out of that equipment. I think if he had teammates that were able to help him and the team develop the car, develop the settings over these rules packages on these tracks, I think that he would be in a much better position. Going specifically to this week, for all the reasons that you said, in addition to the fact that top 10 starters are the ones that ultimately win here, he's starting 24th.
Yeah, throw that in there too.
So it's going to be a long shot for him to actually get done. He's good. Yeah, he's led a ton of laps and he's been very good here. But this season, with the lack of development, the lack of progress with this team, his starting position this week, and the incidents that we've seen over the past few weeks, I got to stay away.
By the way, who are his teammates different next year?
I think they're running it back.
What's that?
They're running it back. Same guys. I think Almirola is going to.
Oh, my
Lord. But the key is, too, I feel like the Fords, I feel like part of it, he doesn't have experienced teammates help setups. The other part is the inspection process. Clearly, they had an advantage that's gone. And with the Ford's deficit to a lot of these tracks, and Keselowski, all the Ford guys are saying it, there's nothing we can do. There's a parts freeze, and we kind of have to race what we've got. I'll be curious now with the new car next year if that gap is shrunk again. I just feel like he was kind of like CJ said, he's punching way above his weight right now. I feel like that car is probably a 10th place car at best.
He could be a nice sleeper pick to win the championship if his odds are where we probably think they'll be, because I can't imagine he's going to have good championship odds to start the season next year.
Agreed.
No, probably not. I would jump on him early, because you never know.
Yeah.
His car's going to tighten that gap. So just 12-1. If he was like 18-1, I might have thrown a little bit his way. Just hey, what's it hurt? Kyle won last year in this round. Let's see what he can do. But other than it's going to take a fluke, I think, if he went for him to win.
Also 7-1. You have Hamline and Truex, and both of you guys put money on Hamlin. Nobody put money on Truex. Hamlin, now he does have 3 wins, but this is interesting. He only has 2 top 5s and a win in his last 19 races since he swept here in 2010. Those are his 3 wins. His average finish in his last 19 is 16th. So I don't know what to make of that. That's kind of why I stood away. I could see him having a top 10, but a win. He's only led 288 laps in 30 races here. That's not a lot. Truex, meanwhile, like you said before, Eric has never won here. He's been kind of quiet for most of the season. So why take him this week? So, yeah, I'm not surprised that nobody touched Truex. You've got the most money on Hamlin, though, CJ. So he's the one that you really want to win this week.
He is, and that's kind of why I did that, because I figured, despite the odds being where they are for him, I think he's probably of the bunch the few that I did choose, I think he's probably the long shot of the bunch. So wanted to make it worth the money if he's going to end up winning. But yeah, you're right. A lot of questions for him coming into this track in particular. He does have success here, so. And it's the first round of a new playoff round. And this gets him to the final four if he does it. Like Eric said, I completely agree. It does feel a lot like it's Hamlin's season were it not for Kyle Larson. So if Kyle Larson's not in the picture, this is Hamlin's championship to lose. I think he's also got a lot of extra motivation to get back there again and make it a reality this time instead of letting it slip away. He was 9th in the fall. He did nothing in the All-Star race. So that's a terrible comparison to look at. I think he finished last, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember exactly what happened, if he had a crash or what.
He did at the end, yeah.
Okay, so there are a lot of questions for him going in. But given his consistency throughout this entire season and the speed that he has shown on virtually every single track, I just can't go away from him, especially considering he's got 3 prior wins here.
The worst thing that could possibly happen to Hamlin would be, to me, in my mind, was if he won this race, because then he'd have 3 weeks to think about it.
What's weird is that you can make a case where he's only out of these playoffs. He's only had 2 meaningful races, because he's won the first race of each round.
There you go.
And it's just been pressure off. So that was gonna be one of my topics next week. Is if he doesn't win, this is the first time in the playoffs they've really faced adversity. They're really facing something, because he's always won the first race and just carried along, because you don't have to worry about Talladega or the Roval or Bristol or Richmond in the first round. It's more, hey, let's test. But statistics show the guy that wins the first race of the round of 8 has a much higher shot of winning the championship, because they can now work on the Phoenix car. You're there. Because why would you work on it beforehand if you know? Because this is the last year with this car too. Why would you? I'm going to go ahead and prep my Phoenix car when it's like, you don't even know if we're going to be championship eligible. Why would you do that? We've got to put our eggs in each week's basket. Well, if you win now, it's all Phoenix all the time from here on out.
I'm still willing to put Hamlin in that category where he's that small percentage where it works against him, because all he'll be getting for 3 weeks is questions about the championship. And I don't see it. I think he'd be much better off winning the last race to get in, or needing to get in and not screw up the last race to just get in, sort of like the way that some of these other drivers, Elliot and even Larson, had to sweat it out and then just go right in next week to the championship and not have any pressure of expecting, especially if he wins on Sunday, then all of a sudden the odds are going to change, and he'd probably be the odds-on favorite to win the championship.
Probably. Well, and Chase Elliott, and I asked him last year that it never happened that the guy winning the last race of the round of 8 won a championship. But the only difference was last year was the first time that the last race of the round of 8 and the championship race were similar tracks. They're both 750 packages. Elliott took the Martinsville car he won to Phoenix because it just won. It worked. You had 500 clean laps. That car, can win. So he took that same car. So you could correlate the two. Actually, like you said, it could serve a good purpose to know back's against the wall. I won this race. Let me bring that same car, same situation for another week. We've seen that in stick and ball sports. The team that has played the last month of the NFL season, having to play their way as a wild card. 4 straight playoff games, start off that first playoff game and usually dominate. So it translates over.
You did not take Elliot or Truex, because CJ did, Eric. He's the only one to put money on Elliot. But Elliot and Truex have never won at this racetrack. Eric.
No, and Elliot, I just don't like the way he's at right now. I just feel like, especially Texas, I don't think he scored a top 5 since his rookie season. I think his last finishes were 11th, 6th, 13th, 32nd, 12th, and 20th. So, and you look at where they are in the season, 550 track, he's only got 3 top 5s all year on him. And this isn't one of his better 550 tracks. So you look at him, 31st in Darlington, 25th in Bristol, 18th in Talladega, 12th last week. I just feel, get yourself a top 5 or top 10 and get some momentum rolling. I just feel like I just don't think he's going to have the car to win. Hendrick's had good 550 cars, but for some reason it's not translating well to him. So I just want to see a little more. I thought about it at 7-1, like you're kind of getting the defending champion at 7-1, but just his prowess on Texas and 550 tracks told me not to.
All right, now Penske, 9-1 Blaney, 11-1 Logano, 12-1 Keselowski. Nobody took Keselowski, and he's also never won at this track. So not a surprise that we didn't take Keselowski. We all took Blaney, as we talked about before. I'm the only one to put a little bit of money on Logano, who was the only one out of this group to win here before, but that was back in 2014. But if you look at it, Logano has 11 top 5s and a win, and he's got 9 top 10s in his last 10, with 6 top 5s and a runner-up. That's kind of what I expect from him, realistically. I think he's going to do pretty well in the top 10. Good fantasy pick this week. Blaney, though, as I said before, I think this is it for Blaney. He can't have a better opportunity to prove whether or not he's a championship driver. If you're going to win in the next 3 weeks, this is going to be it. 6 top 10s in his last 7, 3 top 5s and a runner-up. 400 laps led in his 12 races total. Led 170 laps last year combined, finishing 7th and 4th. Let's keep in mind he won Atlanta. Was also 5th at Atlanta, 5th at Vegas. So and everything is going well for him and the team right now. 9-1. He's just, the odds are great. Once again, he's not getting any credit. If that's Logano and Keselowski, he's probably at 7-1 at the lowest. So yeah, CJ, I just think this is the week for Blaney.
He led 148 laps at Texas with the Wood brothers. So I think that's probably the only statistic you need to know about Blaney at Texas. He's been here 12 times, 8th, 7th, and 4th in his last 3. Had to choose him. He 150 laps led in the spring race last year, 20 laps led in the fall race. Then fast forward to the All-Star race this year. Like I said, anybody who led laps of significance, and you can even throw Alex Bowman in there because he led 9. But cut it there. They're all Hendrick cars. You got 4 Hendrick cars and Blaney. Blaney gets it done here, and he's been the fastest of the Penske cars all season. I think he's coming to a track where he's really confident at. I would love to see him win and put himself into the Final 4. I agree with you. I think this is a week that he can do it, and certainly this is his best shot, I think, among the 3 tracks that are left.
I know he'd still be kind of a surprise to most people outside the know, Eric, but the fact is nobody expected Chase Elliott to win the championship last year. Exactly. And I think the same could be said about Ryan Blaney. He is just as good. Now, can he, like I said, I don't know if he's got the team to help him do it, but now's the time.
And this is the car. This is the time. This is the forecast I saw in the 70s, which his crew chief was talking about NASCAR radio the other day, that's the ideal temperature for them with this package. And this car just seems to work best for the Penske guys in general. That this is his race. I agree. I picked Kyle Busch, but he's my second place finisher right now. It's just, I feel like they're right there. And this is his time to do it. He's got 7 top 6s and 10 550 starts this year. That somehow you look at Atlanta, he chased down, granted, different surfaces, but similar shaped track, chased down Kyle Larson and beat him head to head. He came back to Atlanta and was 5th. And it's like, he's right there. He was 5th again in Vegas in the last round of 550 track. He won Michigan. I just feel like, yeah, this is going to be his moment of glory. And this could put him back into, this would be a NASCAR needs. I mean, you've already got young Chase Elliott, who popular driver can propel him to future heights. Why not get another? Blaney's right there. He's like 28, 27, 28, something like that with Penske. Good clean cut guy that you could get that another young driver and a good friend of Chase Elliott's too. So you can have that new
and another
kind of need that
pedigree.
next guy. Yeah, you need that other guy. I mean, we had Gordon. Granted, this isn't going to be a rivalry at Gordon Earnhardt or Gordon and Jimmy Johnson. I mean, you need that other guy, and this would propel him. We know who he is, but mainstream America doesn't, and this would do it. This would be that time, and especially kind of the usher in from it's safe to say Keselowski, you kind of look at Penske as the face of Penske because he's been there so long, won championship with them. This would kind of pass that torch to Blaney, I think. I think this would kind of like, this is your team now. Yes, Logano's here, but this is yours. And that starts with a win this week.
And again, on the flip side, and if you don't win, you better lead some laps. You better be in the top 5. You better keep the momentum going. If something goes wrong, it's a bad race. You know, the team screws up. In my opinion, I think it's over. So that's how big this race is for him.
4 of his last 5 at Kansas are 20th or worse. You can't stat bad finishes because that all the momentum he's got would be gone. And you don't want to go into Martinsville with a must win because that's what he'd be facing. And there's so many better guys at Martinsville. I mean, granted, he finished runner up in both races last year at Martinsville, but I feel like the Gibbs cars are so much better this year on the 750 package. Chase Elliott won that race last year. I feel like he'll be there. You don't want to go against that, going to the Martinsville thinking you have to beat them head to head. So save that for Phoenix. Get in now.
Okay, now all the other drivers are non-playoff drivers, and this is where all of your money stops. I was the only one to put money on some of these other drivers, and I just did it basically because of what we talked about before, and that is that last year it happened, so maybe it happens again. So the drivers that I put some money on, I put money on Bowman at 22-1, Kurt Busch at 25-1, Reddick at 40-1, Di Benedetto and Buescher 100-1 and 200-1. Out of those drivers, who would you go with, or who would you like the most, CJ?
Honestly, I'd put it on Matt Di Benedetto. He was actually good here in the All-Star race. So he led some laps, got six laps led, got out front, was able to get some notoriety there. He's not been terrible, and he's actually been improving. Not been terrible at Texas, and he's actually been improving the past couple of weeks as well. So if you look at his first starts at Texas at this track, they were all 30th place or worse, mid-20s, somewhere around there. But then when you get to 2019, he starts taking steps forward, and those steps forward consistently all the way into the fall of 2020, where he finished 8th and led 2 laps. And then you come to the All-Star race. You don't get a great finish, but you lead 6 laps as well. But look at his past finishes over the past couple of weeks too. I mean, last week alone, he had another top 10 day. It might have even been in the top 5, if I'm not mistaken. There you go. So he continues to really maximize where he's at with Wood Brothers, knowing that he's going out the door. He's got the extra motivation still of trying to figure out where he's going to drive next year. I think it's unlikely that he wins, but of that bunch, he'd probably be who I'd put my money on.
Eric?
I'd probably go Kurt, just because his stats at Texas are ridiculously good. I think he's got 8 top 10s in a row or something crazy like that. And
very good fantasy pick this week.
It is. He won in Atlanta. I mean, it wasn't a fluke. He looked good in Atlanta. He was 8th in Vegas, 4th in Michigan. I mean, he's showing 550 speed, and he's really good at Texas. So I wouldn't put it past. Plus, they can gamble. I mean, Texas is a track. You get to the end, get a fluke caution, you can take 2 tires, and they're not in the playoffs. They can gamble. They can do something crazy like that. And we saw what Kurt did last year at Vegas when they gambled a long pit run, and he held everybody off because the caution came out. He held his lead. Nobody could pass him. And the guy he beat that day was the Benedetto. So maybe we're looking at a Kurt Busch to Benedetto one too this weekend. Plus the Benedetto also, he's got that Penske. Penske wants him to be up front. So if there's any time the Benedetto is going to get that little bit from Penske for that car, it's this round, because he's got all 3 of his drivers in the round of 8. He could use that 4th car to help him out. A 3rd place finish at the Benedetto keeps another round of 8 guy from that spot. So, yeah, I feel like the Benedetto is a solid top 10 driver this week for both stages, taking stage points away. And Kurt's same way. They might as well take the stage points and just go off strategy what the front guys are doing. You stay away from them and maybe cycle to the lead.
Yeah, because the other guys, Bowman, 3rd and 4th in Atlanta, 5th at Charlotte, 2 top 5s in his last 3 at this racetrack at 22-1. Reddick at 40-1, coming off the big week last week, was 2nd in this race last year. Also 2nd at Homestead. He's teammates, of course, of Austin Dillon, who won this race last year. So keep that in mind. And Dillon does really well at this track. Reddick is at 40-1. And Buescher, 3rd and 6th in his last 2 races. Where's that coming from? But why not then? Because he's starting. Where's he starting? 9th or 10th, maybe, or right outside the top 10, something like that. I would think.
Buescher is starting 10th.
10th, yeah. So
Start.
He's in that trend window.
It's his home race. He's a Texas guy.
Oh, okay, even better. Any other drivers that I didn't mention?
William Byron for me. I think you got to look at the Hendrick cars. I don't recall talking about William Byron. He did well. I think he led the most laps in the All-Star race. I think Hendrick's just got a really good package here. So Byron, the only reason I'd put him even over above Bowman is because I don't like Bowman's last week. They seem to be struggling and not figure out how to get it right. That worries me going into this week. Byron had it right last week. He just made mistakes. If he gets it right this week, he won't be making mistakes again.
Eric?
Yeah, him or Bell. Bell looked good. I think he finished 3rd in this race last year. Didn't they go 1, 2, 3 Toyota?
Mm-hmm.
So that wasn't with the Gibbs car. Now he's with the Gibbs car, and we've seen what they could do too. The big thing to watch this weekend is going to be the Hendrick versus Gibbs battle. I mean, Hendrick's the best on 550s. I feel like Gibbs is column, and if Gibbs has a better race this weekend than the Hendrick cars, then I think that tells you a lot for going through the rest of the season. I think it's really going to be is this Gibbs championship to lose now? I mean, they've got 3 drivers compared to 2 with Hendrick, but Hendrick, this has been their kind of trophy all year. Is the 550 package. Is nobody's been close. Vegas showed us maybe Gibbs has caught something. Granted, Hamlin only won because, like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, Hendrick screwed that pit cycle up. They probably would have went 1, 2, 3, 4 for the longest time, but hey, it's why you race from the green to checkered, and Hamlin capitalized. So we'll see if right now Hendrick has that advantage, but if Gibbs closed it, then Bell could be right there.
And the weather's supposed to be okay?
70s and sunny from what I saw, but
all right,
weather can change.
Sounds good. It always can, but fingers crossed we don't want any more chaos, which we're probably bound to have.
You mean you don't want to finish the race on a random Wednesday like it was last year? Remember all that mist and like, what night are we racing this thing? Yeah, so hopefully we can get this whole thing in, and then 2 more after.
Yeah, fingers crossed. There's 4 more to go, and at some point, you just get the feeling the way this season's gone, we might have one more wacky result. Unfortunately, but hopefully that won't be the case. CJ, rotowire.com. What are you working on for the weekend?
Rotowire.com will have fantasy previews up for Xfinity and Cup at Texas, and then we will also have the Cup recap sometime on Monday on rotowire.com.
Xfinity, who's going to win this week?
Oh my gosh. I'll go with Hendrick this week. Allmendinger got it done last week on the road course. Great performance from him. I think Hendrick was trying as hard as he couldn't get the job done. So I think he's a little bit frustrated coming into this week. And Penske Fords are very strong at this track.
Eric, racereviewonline.net.
Yeah, got the preview up today. The round of 8 pros and cons for each driver, like why they'll win, why they won't, with that round of 8 overall preview. 5 burning questions are out Friday. Feature of Penske out Friday, and then we'll have the usual weekend stuff.
Awesome, guys. Appreciate it, and hopefully we'll talk again next week as we preview. What are we previewing next week?
Kansas.
Who won the first Kansas race?
Kyle. How can you forget the Bushy McBush?
Oh, it was that race.
Bushy McBush race. Yeah,
the Bushy McBush race. We don't have to deal with that this time around, do we?
No,
okay.
Just the Hollywood Casino 400 this time. A little bit easier at the lips for that one.
All right, guys. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you again next week.
All right, sounds good.